jungle.
China panicked. U.S. sent 60 spy planes to monitor Beijing in disputed region in South China Sea. Tension in the South China Sea has escalated again after it was revealed the U.S. sent 60 spy planes to the disputed region. Last month, at least 60 American warplanes conducted close-up reconnaissance flights near China, sparking fears Washington was planning future long-distance attacks against targets in the highly contested region. According to a Chinese government-backed South China Sea Strategic Situation Probing Initiative or SCS, 41 U.S. warplanes flew over the disputed region. Around 6 were spotted flying over the East China Sea, while a further 13 flew over the Yellow Sea, the report released on Monday claimed. The SCS report suggested the U.S. was preparing for future long-distance attacks against targets in the South China Sea. It said, "It's unusual for the U.S. to dispatch fuel tankers from Guam instead of from Kadena Air Base in Japan because such operations are uneconomical and inefficient." Such operations are more probably preparing for future long-distance refueling in extreme conditions, and this deserves great attention. This showed that the South China Sea region is still the U.S. primary focus, but what is equally notable is that activities in the Yellow Sea region had a marked increase when compared with the sporadic activities 2 months ago. The report also added the U.S. planes flew to the Yellow Sea and East China Sea while the Chinese military were conducting drills. It said that while the total number of flights was roughly the same as in July and August, the real numbers may have been higher as some warplanes disguised themselves as civil planes. The report also accused the U.S. planes of not turning on transponders and highlighted the danger of these disguised spying missions. Last month, a U.S. Air Force plane changed its aircraft identification code while flying over the Yellow Sea, making it resemble a Philippine aircraft because reverting to its original number, the SCS said. The U.S. Air Force was also accused of disguising themselves as Malaysian civilian aircrafts in September while flying close to Chinese airspace. Relations between the U.S. and China have grown strained over recent weeks, with Secretary of State Mike Pence calling on other nations to counter Beijing's dominance in the region. But Ben Ho, an associate research fellow at the S. Rajaratnam School of International Studies in Singapore, believes the potential for escalation between the nations is low. The U.S. deployment of aerial tankers from Guam rather than Okinawa hints at the much-talked-about contingency where bases on the Japanese island are knocked out by Chinese missiles during the opening stages of a Sino-American conflict. It also shows that Washington is hedging against the possibility that Japan refuses U.S. forces being stationed on its soil to be deployed against China. Under these two circumstances, America has no choice but to fall back to Guam. While there is much talk about the dangers posed by unsafe encounters between U.S. and Chinese forces in the air or even at sea, the potential for escalation in such situations is low. Malcolm Davis, senior analyst specializing in Chinese security at the Australian Strategic Policy Institute in Canberra. My biggest worry is that China will seek to exploit any internal unrest or political distraction in the US following the US presidential election, to move aggressively against Taiwan or in the South China Sea. The US has to deter such an act, and these types of training missions are part of that forward presence and resolve being communicated to Beijing. Despite having no claim to any part of the archipelago, the US has increased its military presence in the contested region. The South China is an already highly contested area with China, Malaysia, Taiwan, Vietnam and the Philippines all laying claim to parts of the archipelago. Diplomatic relations between the nations, which have laid claim to the islands, are already extremely strained. China has recently constructed several military bunkers on some of the atolls, sparking fears of a World War III outbreak. According to a Beijing-based think tank that monitors flights in the region, the US flew at least 60 warplanes near China's coast in September, the South China Morning Post reported on Tuesday. The South China Sea Strategic Situation Probing Initiative or SCS recorded 41 US flights over the disputed South China Sea, 6 over the East China Sea, and 13 over the Yellow Sea. In a report released on Monday, the SCS said, based on refueling activity, the US could be preparing for long-distance attacks on targets in the South China Sea. The report said the US sent planes from Guam to refuel surveillance planes over the South China Sea. It's unusual for the US to dispatch fuel tankers from Guam instead of from Kadena Air Base in Japan, because such operations are uneconomical and inefficient, the SCSPI report said. Such operations are more probably preparing for future long-distance refueling in extreme conditions, and thus deserve great attention. The report said the September numbers were roughly the same as July and August. But the SCSPI noted there could have been more US flights in the region because some planes disguised themselves as civilian aircraft or did not turn on their transponders. The SCSPI recorded instances of US military planes disguising as civilian aircraft in September. The think tank warned of the danger this practice could pose to actual civilian aircraft in the region. Souring US-China relations in the wake of the coronavirus pandemic have come with an uptick in US military activity in the region. The South China Sea has especially turned into a dangerous flashpoint between the two powers. In July, the Trump administration formally rejected most of Beijing's claims to the disputed waters, and the US regularly sends warships near Chinese-claimed islands in the region.